Dr. Tom Roselle live right now on 105.9 FM and AM 630 WMAL.
Welcome to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. I'm live in studio on this absolutely gorgeous Washington day, broadcasting to you from 105.9 FM and AM 630 WMAL. Love to talk to you on any subject you have in mind. 888-630-9625. That's 888-630-WMAL. That's how you find me. That's how you talk to me. And I've got lots of stories for you today. We're going to talk about several things, and we're going to touch a little bit about my journey to China and some of the things that I saw and what was happening out there. But I'll tell you what, it's really, really good to be home. You know, you get away for a while, you spend 2 weeks in another country, and, you know, you're amazed and you're infatuated, and you see and you say, oh my gosh, and then you return, and sometimes it's like a fish out of water, but more importantly, the learning lessons were magnificent. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about irritable bowel syndrome. There's a paper that just came out, within this last year, and it was published by the Alternative Medicine Review, a journal of clinical therapeutics, and has to do with the problem of urinary incontinence. And it was published by two amazing people, Dr. Scott Cuthbert and Tony Rosner, Ph.D., Research Director of the International College of Applied Kinesiology, which, by the way, is where I was the last few days in Dallas, Texas. It's like I got off a plane from China, and I ended up going to Dallas, and now finally I'm back home, and I'm not sure I know who I am, but I'm going to figure it out as the program goes on, so I can talk to you, and we can talk about your problems and things that are going on. But, you know, I left for Beijing, China a couple of weeks ago, and for a 2-week journey, and where we went was this medical exchange institute, and it is a place where all they use is Chinese traditional therapeutics. By the way, it's kind of an irony because it's run by a 4-star general medical physician for the Chinese army who does nothing more than just run the center with traditional approaches from Tibetan medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, to Qigong and so forth. And when I tell you I saw things in that center that, coming from as much of alternative medicine that we utilize in our office at the Roselle Center for Healing, when you're there and you see some of the things that they were doing with energy movement and true application of these different tools, it just makes you stand back and say, oh my gosh, you know, if I'm not there watching this, I would have never, ever, ever have believed that it was taking place. For an example, a man came in, a businessman, had been paralyzed from the waist down for the better part of 5-6 years from an injury, and nobody's been able to help him. So this man submits to treatment. He's there for several weeks, but more importantly, we're watching the treatment. Now, Qigong is energy movement, and here's this medical physician, not even touching the patient, and two associates, and this patient is moving on the table. Don't ask me, you know, to explain it to you because I still have my head wrapped around it. But more importantly, after they treat him for about 20 minutes through energetic movement, the man, for the first time in 5 years, could feel his legs. Now, I offer this to you for only one consideration, is there's things that we see that we don't truly understand. We don't have the measurement. We don't have the stick to evaluate it. And that's one of those things. With all the work that I've done in acupuncture over the years, with all the work that I've done in herbology and in manipulative modes and so forth, it's the first time I've ever seen anything like that. And it was totally mind-boggling. And then we toured several hospitals in Shanghai and Beijing and watched the application, the integration of Western medicine and also alternative therapies, acupuncture, manual work, herbs, and so forth. And the effectiveness was profound. The changes that we saw were amazing. Some of the things that were there we wouldn't consider here in this country simply because we have a perspective of what medicine is and how we should treat things and so forth. But exponentially, the changes that take place were second to none. And, you know, you come back with, as a doctor, you come back with the perspective of how can I apply this? How can I make it better for each patient that I touch, everybody that I see? How can I implement these things that are not unknown to us in Western culture, but perhaps not well understood and they should be. When that combination comes together, as we saw when we were there, I was with 30 other doctors and some family members of theirs. We all looked at each other, and all of these people, these 30 different practitioners from all over the United States, successful doctors, lecturers, educators, researchers, we sat down every night, night after night, and looked at each other and said, are we really seeing what we're seeing? And how can this be applied, and how can it be made better for the patients that we serve and the things that we do in our practices? And that was the context of it. And I could go on and I could talk hours about it. We took hundreds and hundreds of pictures, and I'm going to try to put that together in a PowerPoint presentation, and maybe one of these nights all of you can talk me into sitting down and showing that to you. It was just an incredible trip. I'm glad to be home because truly, even though that culture is exploding, and by the way, Shanghai, in my opinion, is New York City on steroids. I mean, every place you look, there's a construction crane. Every place that you look, there's development. Every place that you look, there's more than you would expect. And Beijing, being the capital of China, is also an area that's coming up. Now, obviously, China has 1.6 billion people or so, and they're struggling. They're having to put together, but their attempt in changing this is absolutely amazing. So we're going to keep you posted and kind of draw some conclusions from all this. I still have to settle in. I haven't been home in 3 weeks, and we're going to see if we can really find the nuances, the applications that would better serve all of you and all of our patients. 888-630-9625. That's 888-630-WMAL. I'd love to talk to you. We're going to cover some topics that I think that are fascinating to you. But also what I'd like to remind you, and I'd like to encourage you, is that coming up October the 20th, Ageless Health 2012, How to Live Well and Prosper in a Stressful World. That's the topic of this year's Ageless Health program. It's the one that we do every year. It's our keynote event. It's going to be held at the Fairview Park Marriott Hotel. It's a Saturday. It's all day. It starts early in the morning. While you're registering, while you're checking in, we're going to be doing breakout exercises on the stage so you can understand what core training is all about. And then we start at 8, and we rock and roll with tons of information all day long. Those of you who register will be included in a drawing for a special gift worth $1,000. We have a very, very special gift. A good friend of mine, Dr. Evan Mladenoff from Kansas City. Evan was with the Kansas City Chiefs for 12 years, and one of the most brilliant practitioners I've had the opportunity to meet. By the way, he was with me in China. We roomed together for 2 weeks. That was a trial and tribulation, but that's a different story we'll talk about some other time. But anyway, we'd love to have you, and if you register between now and June the 15th, you have an opportunity to save 15%, and it's just $99. It's nothing, and for that you even get lunch. We have an organic lunch that's going to be catered and brought in, and you're going to get all kinds of special things for being there. We have vendors. You're going to see what's out in the marketplace, but you're going to learn to distinguish between health and wellness, what it really means to be well, what your potential is to really take it off the top. You're going to learn about the emotional side of healing. Dr. Mladenoff actually is going to talk about that, and he's going to show you how that, what we used to call psychosomatic illness, really is a problem that can be turned around and can be unlocked. We're going to talk about women's wellness. We're going to talk about how we are energetically and what energy really means in our body, and we'll probably draw some tidbits in from my trip to China. Sue's going to talk about how to eat well on the run, and she's going to show you where to get things, but more importantly, how it affects your health and how it increases your wellness potential. We're going to talk about the origins of diabetes, arthritis, and heart disease. So if you have any of those things, I promise you're going to go away with an understanding of not only how they start and all the inflammatory pathways that go along with it, but what you can do about it. And injury, body injury, when you take a trauma blow, and sometimes you're not even aware that you're taking these blows and the effect that they have long-term as they build up over a period of many months and sometimes years. You know, over the last 10 years, 11 years, those of you who know me know that I had 2 major accidents. And one was 11 years ago in Las Vegas. I was with staff members, and we were going out for dinner, actually, the first night of the conference, and I was on the escalator at the Flamingo Hotel, and I was turned around backwards talking to one of my staff members, and we got down to the base of the escalator, and both of my heels hit the lip and threw me back, and I knew I was coming down, so I flipped around, and I flattened out, but my potential, my momentum continued, and I hit my head on a marble pillar, and it wasn't a pretty sight. Then years go on, and about 5 years ago, last October, I had a head-on car accident. When I was at the conference this last weekend, I was talking to a good friend of mine, Kurt Vreeland, who is a brilliant neurologist, chiropractic neurologist, and he did a brain map on me. And because I told him, I said, listen, there are some pieces that I've learned to compensate for. He says, well, let's take a look. And it was very amazing, the injury patterns that's there. So even though that I've adapted, I've functioned, and I'm going to learn how to turn that piece around. And the plasticity of the brain, the moldability of the brain is such that if you reconnect the neurons, you can overcome these things. And we're going to talk about that at the seminar. We're going to talk about body injury, and we're going to talk about the effects that it has on you. So don't forget, Fairview Park Marriott Hotel, Falls Church, Virginia, Saturday the 20th, October of this year. And we would love to have you there. But if you want to save 15% on an already inexpensive day, you got to get a hold of us. Go to rosellecare.com. That's ROSELLECARE.com and register, and you will get 15% off and some very special gifts. Love to have you. Looking forward for you being there. 888-630-9625. Let's talk about some very quizzical things, if you will. Irritable bowel syndrome is one of them that I want to talk about. Irritable bowel syndrome is, well, we could say epidemic, because it's more and more people are suffering from it. And the reason, the why is that has to do with many things. Has to do with emotional state, has to do with dietary patterns, has to do with the breakdown in the nervous system over a period of time, injuries that occur to the nerves that go to the bowel and to those organ systems. But irritable bowel syndrome is defined as abdominal pain or discomfort that occurs generally in the lower portion of the abdominal area, but not necessarily. It's there for at least 3 months, and it alters your bowel habits as well. So when you get those, most of your physicians are going to say, guess what, you've got irritable bowel syndrome. The symptoms that are associated include, pain and change in your bowel, sometimes diarrhea, sometimes constipation, bloating, distension. You don't completely evacuate or eliminate, and sometimes when you do, it's extremely painful. The symptoms can present in a variety of presentations and different types of severity. But when you get to that place, you have a problem. Now, it's associated with other conditions, sometimes lactose intolerance, inflammatory bowel disease, celiac sprue, gluten sensitivity, bacterium. But more importantly is that it's also associated with neurogenic irritation to the bowel. That means that the nerves that go to the intestinal tract are irritated, or the emotional triggering mechanism for all these things are associated there. 75% of those diagnosed have been suffering for at least 2 years and more, and there's a whole lot of you out there that are suffering with this. I'm going to talk about it very specifically, see if I can give you some insight, some things that you can do to help yourself. We're going to see if, by making some modifications that you can begin to dampen this, because it's no fun. You're not absorbing anything in your intestinal tract when you have an irritable bowel problem. It can be dealt with. We've treated this for many years with great success, and there's no reason to suffer if you're willing to step up. Welcome back. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. You're listening to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. I am in studio. 888-630-9625. That's 888-630-WMAL. Love to talk to you. Even though it's a gorgeous day outside, we're here for you. And any problem that you may have that you've tried, you've applied, you've tried to put the fire out on, and guess what? It doesn't work. Well, let's see if I can turn the problem around for you and recommend something that might actually work for you. We're talking about irritable bowel syndrome, a problem that begins kind of very quietly, just with little rumblings in the lower intestinal tract, and all of a sudden you're ending up with pain 2-3 days a week. You have bowel movements that begin to change. The onset of triggering mechanisms are different. Sometimes it's stress patterns, sometimes it's food, sometimes it came on after an accident, and you really don't hook up the two, but it can happen that way, because once the nerves are irritated, then the whole mechanism, maybe you hurt your head. You hit your head on the windshield in an accident, or you bumped your head doing something else, or you fell down. All of those things can trigger visceral problems, intestinal tract problems, and unless you figure out what they are, they never go away, but that mucus and the crampiness and the straining, the urgency, all of that has to do with irritable bowel problems, and many physicians are not capable of diagnostics properly to a way to find the thing. All they do is throw medication at you, and we want to make you aware that there's things that can be done that are much more effective, and we're going to talk about that. But what I really want you to know is it's growing exponentially, particularly in this country. There's a cost to this, and the cost is somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1.5 to $1.6 billion in direct and indirect costs. That's incredible. That's including medical services and drugs and hospitalizations and loss of productivity and so forth. The loss of productivity in work was estimated last year somewhere to be in the neighborhood of about $210 million, and adding up that cost, as we talked about, somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1.8 billion. Not a good thing when you consider that it takes us away from everything. The treatment patterns for irritable bowel syndrome right now for traditional medicine is nothing more than medications, and it causes all kinds of side effects. The one drug, loperamide, is an opioid receptor antagonist, and it's not absorbed from the intestinal tract after you take it in your mouth. It can go in and cause spasms. It's not a good thing. Loperamide is a coating, and it reduces the abdominal pain, but that's about all it does, and it has a lot of other side effects. It can cause vomiting and cause nausea. It can begin to decrease the neurological receptors within the intestinal tract, so now you end up with other problems of absorption and irritability. Not a good thing. The irritable bowel syndrome treatments are not effective when they're compared to placebos. But when you start looking at them through their comparison studies with herbal medications and acupuncture and manipulative care, you begin to see a change. And we're going to talk about that when we come back into the second half, and I'm going to give you some of the herbal preparations like turmeric and artichoke leaf extract and so forth that help. Mind-body therapy works. Acupuncture is amazing when it comes to these types of things. Hypnotherapy and cognitive behavior therapy has been used for years, and that's when that little rat in the house comes about, when it's an emotional linkage, and those are the tough ones to deal with. We are amazing human beings, and how we can provoke anything to occur in our body. Acupuncture, as for me right now, is obviously something that I have a tremendous amount of interest in, having just come back from China. But having said that, we're also going to tell you a little bit about dietary modifications and things that you need to eliminate that will help. In our society, we're becoming far more gluten sensitive and more dairy sensitive, and sensitive to all kinds of fried things, and that seems to be the platform of our diet. And when that is the underlying cause, it's so or so simple to turn around. All we have to do is recognize it, step up to the plate, and say, hey, listen, I'm the one that's responsible for my life, nobody else. But, everybody wants to catch as catch can. But we're going to talk about the goal of irritable bowel syndrome and controlling it. Can it be turned around? Can it be handled properly? Is it something like a Bacillus bacterium strain that's in there? Could it be a H. pylori? Could it be other things? All those things are possible, but they have to be diagnosed. If they're not diagnosed properly, then you can't treat them. And if you can't treat them, then you begin to suffer the symptoms and the aggravation of the problem, including malabsorption problems and pain and colitis and mucus and all of those things. I'm here for you. I'm here to help you turn this thing around. Welcome back. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. You're listening to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. I am in studio, 888-630-9625. That's how you find me. And I want to encourage you again, Ageless Health 2012 at the Fairview Park Marriott Hotel, Falls Church, Virginia. Sign up before the 15th. You can save 15%. It's a day that you will not forget. We're going to be talking about all kinds of things. Those of you who've been in the past, remember, it changes every year. And you should have gotten a special letter from us that gives you, as a previous attendee of the program, that you'll get a larger discount. But those of you who have not attended, until the 15th of June, you get 15% off. Go to RoselleCare.com. That's RoselleCare.com. Or call 703-698-7117. That's 703-698-7117. Tell my staff that you'd like to attend. Don't forget our special guest, Dr. Evan Mladenoff, doctor for the Kansas City Chiefs for 12 years. He's going to be talking about the emotional side of healing. We're going to be talking about women's health and energy and how to eat well on the run and common origins of diabetes and arthritis and heart disease and injury patterns and how they affect the nervous system and really truly how to get well. Before we continue into irritable bowel problems, as we've been touching upon today, let's go to the phones. Tim, how can I help you?
Oh, Doc, you got a great show.
Thank you, sir.
Just curious, I'm 58 years old, and when I was a younger man, I fell in love with automobile racing, stock car racing to be sure of, and I work in the construction industry in the heavy equipment, and never wore any ear protection way back when, and I think right now that I've got a little bit of tinnitus working on me, and I was wondering if there was any cures for that or anything on the horizon. I have a tone in my ear all the time.
Is it high tone or low tone?
I'm going to say high. It's almost like crickets chirping, but it's not. It don't sound like them chirping. It's just a high type of like a little tone.
Okay, a lot of that stuff is caused from a couple different injuries, and one that you sustained is that high noise that you were constantly exposed to. And sometimes it's once they're damaged, they're damaged. There's not a whole lot that you can do to turn it around. If it's a high-pitched sound and it's a true tinnitus, a ringing in the ear, but it's high, squealy type of sound, niacin, vitamin B3, can help eliminate the problem. And you start with low dosage. And just remember, with niacin, you get a lot of flushing because it vasodilates. It opens up the blood vessels throughout your whole body. So for anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, you can feel really hot and red and blotchy and so forth. It's not anything that's going to hurt you, but that's the effect of it. And I wouldn't take a lot of it to begin with. I would take probably about 20 to 30 milligrams, maybe 50 milligrams a day. If you can get a time release from one of the health food stores, that's even better, and that will work for you. But if that's what it is, if it's damage to the little cilia cells that are on the inner portion of the ear called the cochlea, if those are damaged, then you probably have a permanent injury that is not repairable. But
that's why it doesn't surface itself when you're younger, though. I remember the ringing in my ears when I would leave the racetrack, but it would always go away. What you're saying is, with time, these
that's right, they die off faster.
I see.
And when a lot of those things, what you hear is when they die, it's a high pitched squeal. It's and then all of a sudden it goes away. That's when those little hair fibers are dying.
Wow. Well, the price of how you live.
I know. Anyway, Tim, try the B3. It won't hurt you. Keep it at a very low dosage, and if you see some improvement, the one thing that I do know that will help many types of hearing problems and ringing and tinnitus, and works very profoundly, is acupuncture. We've used it over the years, and it does have a significant impact. But if when you do acupuncture, if you don't see an effect within a half a dozen or 8 treatments, at least some changes, then it's not going to work.
Thank you so much. God bless you, sir.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it very much. We're here at 888-630-9625. That's 888-630-WMAL. Love to talk to you on any subject you have in mind. We're talking a little bit about irritable bowel syndrome. And there's things like turmeric and artichoke extract and chamomile and peppermint and angelica root and caraway and so forth that have been used by many practitioners, and there's some that are more effective than others. But with the underlying problem, you have to be proactive. You have to do some lifestyle things. You have to change the foods that may be an underlying cause. If you're gluten sensitive, if you're dairy sensitive, got to stop it. If you've had an injury and you know that it started afterwards, guess what? You got to see somebody like me and get it fixed. But in our experience, the 3 herbs that are the most effective over time, actually 5 of them, is going to be peppermint leaf extract, and you can do it with peppermint tea or a concentrate, chamomile flower extract, licorice, turmeric, and artichoke leaf extract. They all work very nicely and for different effects. Peppermint leaf has a very strong anti-inflammatory and a very strong oxidative process within the body. Chamomile works to balance the acid secretions within the intestinal tract, and licorice works also to balance and decrease the inflammatory response. One thing that has been used more so today than before, and that's turmeric. And turmeric has been traditionally used for managing any kind of abdominal pain and indigestion and bloating and so forth. The effectiveness on the improvement of irritable bowel syndrome symptoms has been investigated quite extensively. And what we're seeing is that at least 50% of the people that use turmeric by itself have some effect. Bloating decreases, pain begins to diminish, and so forth. But again, it depends on what the triggering mechanism is. So there's a lot of things you can do. If you know you're under stress, and your stress hits you in the intestinal system, well, guess what? You need to do something about that. And things like Tai Chi and yoga and Qigong, and those are extremely effective to calm the body and move the energetics. And you'll find that they can be extremely, extremely effective. This is a condition also that can be treated with acupuncture and manual therapies. Depends on if the underlying problem has been initiated from that, and you need to have somebody who knows how to take the problem apart. Exercise is critical because we're under stress, particularly in this Washington metropolitan area. Diet modifications, fiber, and so forth. One of the other things that I've noticed, and I need to put it on the plate for you to consider, is the amount of fats and sugars and sugar alcohols that we take into our body today are ridiculously offensive to the intestinal tract. And if we don't eliminate those types of things in our diet, we can really have problems with intestinal cramping, we can have colitis problems, we can have mucus, we can have all of those things. Putting some fiber back in your diet, particularly in the form of soluble fibers of fruits and vegetables, is extremely beneficial and supportive, and it will make life much, much more pleasant for those of you who have that problem. Give us a call if we can be helpful with any of these conditions, because we can get very, very specific. Let's go back to the phones. Mike, how can I help you, sir?
Yes, sir. I'm calling from Alexandria. I was associated with the Sikh faith called Shura Shabda Yoga. The Sikhs from India that wear the turbans and
yes.
pull the beards under.
Yep, totally familiar.
It goes back 20,000 years, but organized 5,000 years ago.
Sure.
Tinnitus has nothing to do with inner ear problems. It's part of the celestial sounds.
Well, that's, you're getting into it from a different type of approach, and unfortunately, that's not what we're talking about. Tinnitus has significant problems that are associated with liver function and kidney function in the acupuncture system. When the liver meridian, the liver chi energetic is way too high, then you're going to have a high-pitched sound. When kidneys involved in the energetic pathways, you're going to have a low-pitched sound. And you can also have damage if it is well known that when the hair fibers of the cochlea are damaged, then we're going to have that type of problem show up on a regular basis. So you have to understand it. But, we're not talking about the esoteric ends here. We're talking about very straight up functional healthcare conditions. Mike, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. 888-630-9625. That's 888-630-WMAL. Love to talk to you on anything, and we'll try to put the right pathway for most of us to understand so we can have an effective resolution of our conditions. Curcumin is an interesting herb that has been used for many years for a lot of different things, and it's being used more and more now for any kind of inflammatory condition, particularly in the intestinal tract. Curcumin works well for bowel diseases, and the extract is turmeric, and it's used as a spice in curry powders and mustard, and is known scientifically as curcuma longa or curcuma domestica. Depends on the modification of it. The perennial herb has multiple ingredients, but the curcunoids, which what they're called, are used for medicinal applications, and turmeric has great success in treating a lot of these things. Curcumin has been well documented for many years in not only now in Western medicine, but also in Chinese, Hindu, Ayurvedic medicine. It's very, very specific. It's very capable of putting out the fire, if you will, in toxic reactions of the intestinal system, and it's used to relieve dyspepsia and malignancies. We've used it in the practice, and we test everything that we use. Seems to be one of those things that will help in even bloody stools and pain and the significant pain pattern that is produced by Crohn's disease. But not one piece is 100% for everybody, and this is just a piece. It's another application. It's something that we can add to to what we do. Interesting articles are constantly coming out, and what you have to remember when you look at an article, no matter who wrote it or who's talking about it, it's just a piece. It's one thing. And there are many things, because we want to protect ourselves from getting into the headspace where we see a one-size-fits-all, because it's not that way. One size does not fit everybody. One condition cannot be treated by the same thing. Conditions, whether irritable bowel, whether they're arthritis, whether they're a migraine, are simply explanations of the pain, but it doesn't answer the question how it started or where it started. And that's the most important thing. As we're talking about irritable bowel, we're talking about many different things that could initiate the problem, from dietary reactions, allergy reactions, trauma, emotional stress. Where does it affect? It's either structural, chemical, emotional, as you've heard me say many, many times. If we look at the traditional American diet, or the standard American diet, the SAD diet, if you will, it's a bombardment and an insult on an ongoing basis to our bodies. The preservatives, the additives, the things that we put in our body, we wouldn't give to a rat unless we were going to try to kill it. But that's what we're doing to ourselves, slowly over a period of time. Mendel, can I help you?
Hi, Doctor. Good afternoon.
How are you, sir?
Good. I'm doing well. Thank you for your show. This is a topic which is very important to me. I'm in my low 30s, and I've struggled with irritable bowel syndrome for a number of years. And you mentioned previously on the show that the diet is very important, and it's important to add a lot of soluble fiber, and that would be eating a lot of fruits and vegetables. I'm suggesting this just from my personal experience. I have found that eating a lot of vegetables, and particularly those that are very green, lettuce and so on, spinach, have actually caused me a lot of bloating and cramping.
Yeah, they can, particularly for a couple of reasons. And one is that with our patients, if we're going to give them something like that, we start out having them juice it until the intestinal tract heals. And we use things to decrease the inflammatory response first, and also use supportive digestive enzymes to break it down. Patients who have irritable bowel disease or have ulcerative colitis or mucus colitis, if you start putting things like this in right away in heavy dosages, you can end up with a paradoxical reaction where actually you're increasing the symptom process. So what you'd want to do is you start putting them in step by step, and you juice them. So you're breaking down the fibrous coat, or you're going to give heavy amounts of digestive enzymes, particularly pancreatic enzymes, because those are the ones that handle the vegetables and the fruits. Again, remember I always say one size doesn't fit all. I'm giving things that work over a period of time. But you have to understand the process. A patient who has, as part of the problem, if they have a fungus or a mold problem in the intestinal tract, you're not going to give them a lot of fruit because it's going to flare it up. It's going to make it much, much worse for them. If they have allergy reactions, or if they're not getting organic foods, it's going to be much worse for them. So as opposed to just eliminating those things which bother me, you would say that I should get the fruits and vegetables and those vitamins, but in a juice format. Yeah, I would take them in a juice format with the whole fiber in there. You actually can juice them yourself. You want to leave the outer coat in there, but you want it broken down to a place where you can actually use it yourself. But there's much more with all these conditions. That's just one piece of changing the dietary patterns. I'd love to help you. Get a hold of me at through the website at rosellecare.com, and if we can help you in the office, we'd be glad to do it. But the problem can be assisted, it can be supported, and ultimately can be healed in our experience over a period of years. So
thanks so much.
You're welcome, my friend. Thank you. Welcome back. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. You're listening to Dr. Tom Roselle live. I've been in the studio after 3 weeks away from the studio, but you've been well taken care of. My brilliant doctors have been giving you a tremendous amount of information, and hopefully we can continue to do that every week right here on Dr. Tom Roselle Live. Want to remind you that if you need information outside the program, you can always get a hold of us at rosellecare.com. That's ROSELLECARE.com. We'll always get back to you. Sometimes it takes a little long. My problem is I like to answer each one of you individually, and sometimes there's a lot of you that want information, so we do get to it, and as quickly as possible. If you'd like one of my doctors to call you and to talk to you, all you have to do is call 703-698-7117, and they will get back to you. They will answer your questions and try to give you as much data as they possibly can. We're here to serve you. That's why we do this program. Talked a little bit about a paper that was presented, a case report that I'm very proud of because of the two guys that did the presentation. Dr. Scott Cuthbert, he's from Pueblo, Colorado, and Dr. Anthony Rosner. Dr. Rosner, PhD and all types of other credentials, Harvard graduate, Director of Research for the International College of Applied Kinesiology. Dr. Scott Cuthbert, chiropractor, applied kinesiologist. He is the chief physician, clinician for the Chiropractic Health Center in Pueblo, Colorado. Amazing, two brilliant guys that love research, love to answer the question why something happens. And in this case report, this, by the way, was published again in the Alternative Medicine Review, a journal of clinical therapeutics, in June of 2011. Go online, you can pick it up, but it's really fascinating. It talks about a young woman, a girl, 13 years of age, with urinary incontinence and right hip pain that was following an emergency open appendectomy surgery. This came about as a result of that. Now, the interesting thing about the article is that it talks about how they treated her and how they identified the problem through manual muscle function testing. So do yourself a favor, go in and check it out. I think you're going to be very fascinated. And we get some time, I will go over it with you in the weeks to come because it shows how the organ-muscle relationships are very poignant in identifying healthcare problems. And by the way, that's what we do in our office. Unfortunately, the show's coming up to an end. It does go by very quickly, and I wish we had a whole lot more time, but not so you can get a hold of us offline. But this is Dr. Tom Roselle, and I'm here every Sunday at 12 noon trying to give you the most up-to-date information on alternative methods of treating your health and your wellness. See you next week.